All right, it's a little bit after 10, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. We are going to record this webinar too, so for anybody who joins late, don't worry, we've got a recording and we'll have it up on YouTube for you to stream. I want to thank you all for joining us again. We're going to do these every week. We have gotten enough content. We may have to do even more frequently than that, but at least weekly to start. We've got a pace, and we just want to make sure that you know about all the programs that are out there, and then make sure that we give you easy to follow instructions about how you can access these programs. Emily is still sending out emails every day. So if you are not already on that list, if you'll please email Emily at newtownmacon.com. She'll add you to the email list. David, I got you added this morning. And feel free to spread any of that information far and wide. The biggest thing that's on that email that's linked is everything that we put in those emails, we are going to update on our resource guide. So if you go to the NewtownMacon.com website, you can find the latest version of our resource guide there every day. So every time you open that Google Doc, it's going to have the newest information. So under Powering Newtown, if you go to COVID-19, scroll down to the bottom, there's a link to the resource guide. Every time you click that link, it's going to be new information. So it's going to consolidate everything from the emails that we sent out. So you don't have to keep up with whatever came out in the latest email. Just go to our website, click the resource guide, and you're going to have access to the most up-to-date information that we have available. So, you know, one of the things I wanted to remind you about last week's webinar was on how to file partial unemployment claims. I want to say we're at something like, we've got to be close to 100% on business owners who've done that, which is just really, really heartwarming to make sure that your employees can access those benefits as quickly as possible. If you go and do those partial unemployment claims, they get benefits in 48 hours versus weeks the other way. If you have questions about how to do that, you do have to do it every week. So I tell you to go back to the resource guide, watch the webinar from last week. You'll get a good set of step-by-step instructions. In that resource guide, there are also links to the Excel worksheets that James talked about last week. If you go ahead and do those Excel worksheets, you can upload them every week instead of having to retype line by line for each employee in the unemployment system. It'll save you a tremendous amount of time. So remember, every week you got to update that information. One other change to the unemployment system also is that the CARES Act that passed last week adds $600 to the unemployment payments every week. So that's happening automatically. But again, your employees access those benefits in 48 hours if you go and file the partial unemployment claims versus weeks if you don't. The CARES Act also included the individual payments of $1,200 per person, which start phasing out at around $100,000 for an individual and $200,000 for a couple. Based on your last filed tax returns, you have to have filed 2018 or 19. Last time the government authorized these kind of payments was in the last financial crisis, and it took 6 weeks to start getting out checks. Now, I think all of us are optimistic that that's going to happen a little bit faster this time because so many more Americans did a direct deposit with tax returns. So the IRS theoretically has got access to direct deposit those benefits pretty quickly. So we're hoping that'll happen a little bit faster. And then I just want to say, I mean, y'all are amazing. The business owners we have downtown. I miss seeing y'all. I look forward to this webinar when I at least get to see you through the computer. But so many of you have already reached out to me to tell me that you're working on things to make you stronger when you reopen. I know Scott told me that he's added several items to his online store that weren't available before, and he's been doing deliveries this morning. Lee Clack told me that his point of sale system included an online store that he had not activated. So he has now activated that, and he's building that out. I think these are smart moves that are going to help us. Undoubtedly, we will reopen. I am confident in talking to the International Downtown Association. Downtown's bounced out of the last recession faster than any other commercial district. I think that's going to be the same again here. We're going to come out first and fastest when this thing is over. And so anything you can do now to prepare yourself for to prepare yourself for roaring out of this shutdown. And anything you can do that now that you've got the time to turn some stuff to your to-do list is it's a great time to do it. So let me tell you about the agenda for today. I'm going to pitch it over to Bethany in just a few minutes in my office. She's going to talk about an overview of the SBA disaster loan process, the EIDL, and why you should consider applying. I'm then going to walk you through step by step the application process. It's changed 3 times, so I'm going to walk you through the one that's live right now, and do that step by step with you. It really is not that difficult, but it probably will be helpful to do it together. After that, I'm going to pitch it over to David Lambert with Luminant Advisors. David owns an accounting firm in downtown Macon. He specializes in small businesses and cloud-based accounting. He's going to talk a little bit about what's on the horizon and some of the tax changes and potential benefits that he's using with his clients. Finally, James Fritz from my office is going to back cleanup and anything we missed or anything he can clarify, or any other programs that he's aware of. We've all read widely and deeply about what's on the horizon. And we're going to end with some questions and answers. You can use the chat feature in Zoom to add your questions and answers at any time. So as we're going, if you think of questions and answers, just add them to the chat box. Emily and Bethany and James and I will all watch that, and we'll make sure we address those as we get to the end. We are going to end at 11 if we go that long. If there are any questions we don't get to during the webinar, we'll answer those in our resource guide and get those emailed to you. So I'm going to pitch it over to Bethany now. Bethany, if you don't mind taking over and talking a little bit about an overview of the SBA loan programs.
Okay, so I'm unmuted. Can you share so that I can, and my co-host Josh, so I can share my screen? Okay, there we go. Okay, hang on everybody. Is that working? Am I a go? Can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. So just real quick, everyone, I want to give you an overview of this program. Sorry, it's my first time doing a big Zoom conference like this, and I'm having mouse issues here. Okay, so we're really going to focus on the economic injury disaster loans. There's a lot of confusion, and a lot of these things are still yet to be, some of the other relief programs are still yet to be truly defined, and we don't totally understand the application process. But this is one not only that we've gotten familiar with over the last week plus, but also that we see is just like a program that you should undoubtedly apply for. And hopefully after my section, you'll understand why, and then you'll understand exactly what you need to do to apply after Josh's presentation. So just real quickly, this program, all economic injury disaster loans are programs that are administered directly by the SBA, not another banker or any other kind of lender. So the way to apply is online. We'll show you that system. So it's from the U.S. Treasury through the SBA directly to you. The purpose behind this loan is to help you cover what would be expenses, normal expenses prior to the pandemic that you're going to have a hard time meeting because of your current cash flow crunches. So you're not going to be able to make the argument of some kind of big contract that was about to come into play in April or something like that. You're just going to be able to make the argument about these are what my normal expenses have been. I need you to project out and help me get these covered for the next few months while I'm not only maybe partially shut down, but I'm going to need some time to ramp up and get back into full operation and get caught up on my bills. They're also, because some businesses are doing well in the pandemic, these loans are not designed, they're economic injury loans, so they are not designed to help a business expand in any kind of way during this time period. So these loan awards can be up to $2 million. 3.5% interest in terms up to 30 years for businesses. One of the unique features of this loan is that nonprofits can apply. There's not many loan programs out there for nonprofits, and nonprofits actually get a lower interest rate at 2.5%. How this program works is that the SBA has a formula. They haven't shared what that formula is. Frankly, they're probably trying to work it out because they just have unprecedented numbers of applications to process, literally probably in the millions by the time this is all said and done. So they're trying to come up with a formula to help figure out what your needs are in the months ahead, and then also what your cash flow is going to be, because they're going to determine your payback term as well as your loan amount based on formulas. And the term will be based on how much cash flow you have, how much extra cash you're going to have in a typical month once you recover to make payments back to the SBA. We know that they're going to rely very heavily on business history financials to make these determinations. So if you have not applied yet, David is going to help you understand what kinds of information you're going to need to get around your business history and your business financials to submit to the SBA to help them figure these things out and underwrite your loan. So if you have submitted the streamlined application, the newest one that was launched yesterday morning, it's very simple and straightforward. You'll see extremely user-friendly, but it's so straightforward. They're not requesting additional documents now. So we know that there's going to be another round of follow-up from loan officers after you submit the streamlined application that's going to provide them more financial detail to help them actually underwrite the loan. And there is communication happening with the SBA that's saying, we know this is going to take some time to process these loans because we are so overloaded. And that's my seg into the number one reason why you should apply for this loan, but also to talk about the newest feature of this program, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Grant. So as of Friday, once the stimulus package got passed, there is now an economic injury grant or advance of up to $10,000 for small businesses that you can qualify for as part of the program. If you have submitted previously in earlier versions of their application, online version 1 or online version 2, which were online until Monday morning, you need to go ahead and submit version 3. We know this from folks who've already applied and been communicated, the SBA has communicated with them and asked them to go back in and submit this new streamlined application that we're going to go over today. Because in that application, you specifically indicate if you would like to be considered for this grant or advance. So at the very end, Josh is going to show you where it comes, but double, triple check and make sure that you say, yes, I want to be considered for this. The idea is that this money is going to hold you over until they have time to process the loan awards and make a loan award offer to you in the weeks ahead. So be sure to submit that. We've also had some folks ask, can you receive the grant and loan award? And yes, that's the intention behind it. The grant is supposed to hold you over, help you with immediate cash crunches that you may be facing in your business until they can offer you some kind of a loan award. And, you know, you could even just accept the grant as well. I don't know if anybody's asked us that directly, but if you go ahead and submit this award, you'll be in the queue. And we do encourage you to submit these things as quickly as possible because they're literally getting tens of thousands by the hour to get in that queue. So you can go ahead and get the grant turned around as quickly as possible, as well as the loan process. So if you've already applied or totally are convinced to apply, these are still some things to think about or know that are features or options of this loan program. So typically in the business finance world, lenders want you to pay for their loans out of your business cash flow, out of your profits after you pay your typical expenses. But sometimes things happen. And for instance, if you were in an accident in a year from now and had to go through months and months of physical therapy, you might have to shut down your business. So the lenders are looking for another way to get their money back. The SBA actually for collateral likes real estate, even if they're in second and third position. That's their preferred form of collateral on loans that they make, especially in this program, the EIDL, probably mostly so they can put some kind of lien on a piece of property and help you or make you work out some kind of repayment agreement with them, even if your business closes. So they are hoping to be able to take some kind of security position in a piece of real estate. But they know that lots of business owners don't have that right now. So you can get an unsecured loan, which isn't always possible in the world of business lending and finance. And so this is a unique feature of this loan. So you can get an unsecured loan of up to $25,000 where you don't have anything for the SBA to take a security interest on. The other thing is you have the option to not pledge collateral. So if the SBA comes back to you after you've submitted all your documents and they say, we'll give you a $50,000 loan and we want to take second position on your home. And we've seen in a lot of instances where an entrepreneur's like wife, husband, partner is not comfortable with the idea of their home being collateralized for a business loan. So you can decline that the SBA uses your home as a collateral position or collateralizes the home or takes it as a security position and just say, I just want up my $25,000 unsecured loan amount instead of that full 50. So you can either get an unsecured loan or have the option to not pledge collateral. Another reason why we're really encouraging folks, there are no fees to apply for this loan. It will take some work. And even we know it's not an ideal world to take out loans where you ordinarily wouldn't have to, but you can hold these loan awards in suspense. And we were having a casual conversation before this started. And we were talking about how there could be some bumps in the road, not just immediately in the ramp up phase when we can all get back to business here, but maybe because your cash flow is slower this spring, you're going to look up and when you're getting ready for your holiday season, realize you're having a real cash crunch. If you get a loan award offer from the SBA through this EIDL program, you can ask them to hold that loan in suspense for up to 6 months. So you can just have this as a tool in your back pocket in the event that you do need some monies to help you get through the rest of 2020. So another reason we really think this is a great product to go ahead and apply for. And then lastly, when they do issue the loan award to you, issue the promissory note, you're going to have a 4-month deferment period. So if May 1 is the date you get the loan award, you will not have to pay anything toward that loan award until September 1. And on this last slide here, just comparing how if you do have this loan in your back pocket, again, even if you're hesitant to take out another loan, the reality is the payback terms of these loans compared to everything else that's available out there are going to be really preferred. I mean, about half as much as other SBA products, about a third as much as a typical bank business loan. And then if you look up and you're in a really serious crunch and you have to either put a whole bunch of business expenses on a business credit card or these alternative online lenders who we really discourage folks to stay away from, who do quick turnarounds and get you cash in your pocket immediately, but will debit your account daily. You can see the comparison, $250 per month with the economic injury disaster loan versus about $12,000 per month if you took the same amount with one of these alternative online lenders. So these terms are just going to be hard to beat, even with some of the other relief kinds of products and loans out there. And we really encourage you to go ahead and get this very simple, streamlined application submitted and the process started. And with that, I'll just hand it back over to you, Josh, to walk everybody through this piece.
Thanks, Bethany. That was perfect. We've already got some questions coming in, which I have seen in the chat box. Y'all keep them coming, and we'll start going through those at the end. So what I'm going to do to take you through the application is I'm going to again go back to NewTown's website. I'm going to go to the COVID-19 page. I'm going to click over to the resource guide. And I'm going to scroll down till that I find the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loans. And there is a link right here to the step-by-step instruction process for going through the disaster loan. Under the step-by-step instructions, there's also a link to the actual application. So I'm going to go ahead and click over there and just walk you through it one by one. The first page is really simple. These are the minimum qualifications for applying for the program at all. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different options that describe the organization of your business. You've got to pick one of those that is most accurately describes your business. So, and you really need to read all of them because like Bethany said earlier, nonprofits are eligible. So, I mean, while applicant is a business with not more than 500 employees is true of NewTown, this one down here, applicant is a nonprofit organization, is a more accurate description. So again, you need to read all 8 of those options and select the one that most accurately describes your business, which for us is a nonprofit organization. So the next thing is you have to, this is pretty good instructions, review and check all of the following. So everything here you've got to be able to answer truthfully and check those boxes. These are the regulations that control who is eligible for these funds and who is not. If you can't check all of those boxes, you probably are not eligible for the program. So again, I've selected the description that's most closely describes NewTown Macon. And then I've checked all those boxes for the minimum qualifications, that we're not behind on child support, not engaged in illegal activity, etc. So the next page, you're going to enter the enter information about the business. Most of this is super simple. The legal name you want to match your tax return. So if you need to go pull your tax return and look at exactly the punctuation that's listed, I did that already for NewTown. Next is trade name. If you're doing business as a different company, you need to enter that there. Otherwise, it's a required field, so you have to enter the same legal name again if they're the same. The employer identification number or social security number. So if the company that's applying for assistance has an employer identification number, that's what you want to put here. You only want to put the social security number if this is a sole proprietorship, in which case you'll put the sole proprietor's social security number in this box. If you do not know your EIN, let me flip back to the step-by-step guides. If you look at the step-by-step guides, we've got a link right here to the IRS's website where you can look up how to find a lost or misplaced EIN. So click that link and it'll give you tips about how you can find your EIN to enter here. I know NewTown's by heart. And next, you're going to have to choose the legal organization for the business that you entered at the top. So again, you need to look through all the options, and if you can't remember how your business is organized, the easiest way to do that is, again, going back to the step-by-step guide. There's a link to the Secretary of State's website. You can click that link and you can do a search for the business by name. And once you do that search, it'll tell you how the business is organized. So I'm going to do NewTown Macon. Let's see what we come up with. There's NewTown Macon, Inc., a domestic nonprofit corporation. All right. So that is not one of the options here. So I'm going to select other. But the next question is the applicant a nonprofit organization? In this case, the answer is yes. Next question is the applicant a franchise? We are not. Now here's where you're going to have a little bit of work. If, like Bethany said earlier, you've already applied in one of the previous 2 systems, you've already had to do this financial information. So for you, this is going to take 10 minutes to finish this form because you just got to copy and paste from your previous application. If, however, you have not done one of these applications yet, there are 2 things you're going to have to figure out. For some of you, it's going to be as simple as calling your bookkeeper and just asking for 2 pieces of information. The only thing that's a little bit tricky about this information is the time period. The time period ends, it's 12 months that ends January 31st, 2020. So if it had just ended December 31st, you probably would have had this information in hand ready to go. But what they're looking for is a period that starts February 1st, 2019 and goes until January 31st, 2020. And the 2 things they want to know for those time periods are, first of all, what your revenues were. So that ought to be pretty easy. You ought to be able to go into your point of sale system, even if you don't have a professional bookkeeper working for you, and get gross revenues, just the total amount of money that your business took in between February 1st, 2019 and January 31st, 2020. The next part is a little bit more difficult. The next question is, I'm going to put $3 million for NewTown. The next part is your cost of goods sold for the 12-month period prior to the disaster date. So again, that is the same time period. That is February 1st, 2019 to January 31st, 2020. I've put a link in this step-by-step guide to Investopedia's definition of cost of goods sold that you might find useful to walk you through thinking about how to calculate your cost of goods sold. Basically, the formula is your starting inventory value plus the amount of money you spent on new inventory purchases minus the value of the inventory you still have. That equals your cost of goods sold for this time period. So what you can do is you can go in and look at the inventory purchases you made each month during this period. For a restaurant, the starting inventory and ending inventory probably are not as important because your inventory spoils. So month to month, you're not carrying over a lot of stuff. If, however, you're a retail business, you probably had a lot of inventory at the start of the year, and you probably still have a lot in your shop at the end of January 31st. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for you to figure out your cost of goods sold. So that is the most difficult part of the whole application, is figuring out your cost of goods sold for the period of February 1st to January 31st, 2020. Again, if any of you have a professional bookkeeper or accounting firm, they can solve that for you. It's as quick as an email or a phone call to ask for those two specific pieces of information. But if you don't, you are totally capable of figuring this out on your own. It's just going to take a little bit more time to get through the application. So I'm going to flip back to the application, and again, I'm going to put in $3 million for cost of goods sold. The
Josh,
next field, yeah, David?
If I could just add something about the
Sure.
cost of goods sold that probably hadn't dawned on a lot of people, is on your tax return, your business tax return, there is a specific spot that your cost of goods sold number went into. So you can absolutely, if you've done your 2019 tax return, start with that number and then adjust it just for January. But your tax professional should have 11 of those months done for you already, and it will just be right there waiting for you on your tax return.
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, if they'd only ended this on the calendar year, it would have been super easy. But that's a really good suggestion, that 11 of these months are on your tax return if you've done 2019. So you've only got 1 month to reconcile off that. The next field is not required. The next field is if you have rental properties and if you've lost rents due to the disaster. So that's a pretty specific requirement. A lot of us who have rental properties don't actually know what the losses are yet because we're just going into the first billing cycle. So I'm going to put 0 there, even though we do have rental properties. The next question is also not required. It's specific to nonprofits, and it's the cost of operations for 12 months prior to the date of disaster. Again, it's not a calendar year. This is February to January. So we had to do a little dicing to get to our number. It was close to $3 million. So I'm going to put that in there instead of actually finding it. The next question is also not required. It's very specific. It's for faith-based entities that are providing secular social services. So an example of this would be a church that runs a food pantry that's not limited to the congregation. So that's a service that's available to the entire community. And they want to know the annual operating expenses for that specific secular service. Again, it's not required, so you don't have to put anything in this field, nor the next one where you describe those social services. The next field is compensation from other sources received as a result of the disaster. In all likelihood, this one is also 0, but if you have filed and received an insurance claim for part of the disaster that you've experienced, such as if you had a policy for lost rental income or lost business income that's already paid out. You want to list those there. In the description, I'd also suggest listing the name of the insurance policy, the insurance agent, and contact information for that agent. In all likelihood, again, there's nothing that goes into these fields. This is super easy. You've just got to enter the business address for the company. And an email address. The date the business is established. Again, if you need help with that, go back to the Secretary of State's website. And when you search for the company, you're going to find the date of formation registration date right there in the record. So 4/16/97 is what we need for NewTown. And the previous versions of this form said current ownership or management. So for NewTown, I'd say in a legal sense, it's always owned by the board, so it's never changed. But if this is a business that you've purchased, you want to put in the date that you completed the acquisition of the company and have run it. Now, the business activity, the next two questions are drop downs. And you've got to pick the first one before you can pick the second one. So the first one is business activity, and it's a fairly limited set of choices, and they may not accurately describe your business, but you see what you've got here. So read them all, pick the one that's most accurately describes what your industry is. There is no nonprofit one, so I picked miscellaneous services. Once you pick a category in the business activity, the detailed business activity dropdown populates with a list of subsidiary choices. And again, you can select the one that most accurately describes your business. The last question on this page of the form is the number of employees as of January 31st, 2020. So you just enter that number here. Once you have completed all the required forms all the required fields on this form, the next button becomes available. So this page could be,
Josh,
Bethany, you want to say something?
Yeah, somebody yesterday was asking me if contract employees count in that line, and they do not. You do not list contract employees.
Right, thank you. That's helpful. So the next page is about the business owner. And the first question is your business owned by a business entity? So an example of this would be an operating LLC where the members of that LLC are other LLCs. So if your business is owned by other business entities, you click yes. And if you click yes, you get a new set of forms, a new set of fields that pop up that are specific for listing that business applicant parent entity. So you can fill out those sections, and if that's a situation that applies. In situations like that, it's also frequently true that there is not just one majority owner. There's not just one other business entity that is a member or owner. There are several. At the bottom of this form, you can add as many additional owners as you want, whether those are individuals or businesses. So if you have a lot of other business owners, it doesn't matter how many you have, and it doesn't matter who you start with. You've got to enter the same information for every one of them, including the percentage ownership that that particular business entity has. It's true of individuals too. So if this business entity is consists of several individual residents who own various percentages of the business, same thing. You enter their personal information here, and you can add as many additional owners as you need to. Again, you can list ownership percentage here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this out again for NewTown. For some of you, this is pretty simple. If this is an LLC and you own 100% of the membership shares, you're only going to have to enter your own information. All right, so once you filled that out, it may well be that you only have to enter that one person, and that's true for NewTown. We just have to enter me. So as soon as all the required fields are entered for at least one owner, you can click Next. The next page takes you to the last page of this form. So it's really not that bad. The hardest part of the revenues and COGS, and once you get past that, it's really just filling in the blanks. So you have to answer a few more questions here. Has the business or a listed owner been convicted of a criminal offense during the past year? No. Is the listed owner currently suspended or disbarred? No. Am I subject to an indictment? Been arrested? This would be embarrassing if I had to answer. I would lie. No. And then the next section is if you had anyone help you fill out the form, which there's nothing wrong with. And my entire staff is here and happy to help. So if there is anything we can do to help you fill out this form, just send us an email, call, or text, and we'll be happy to schedule a time. If, however, you have a tax professional who'd like to do this for you too, you can have them do it and list them here, and you can even give permission for the SBA to discuss that application with whoever filled out that form for you. And if you did hire a professional to do it, they want to know that the fee you've agreed to pay and have that listed here. Again, if you ask anybody at NewTown, it's going to be completely free. We will help you for free, and we have partners who've agreed to help you for free. So we have plenty of bandwidth to help you get through this. Now the kicker, the piece that Bethany talked about earlier, the magic checkbox. I would like to be considered for an advance of $10,000. This option did not exist on any of the previous application forms because the law just passed on Friday. So even if you filled out the previous forms, you have to fill out this new form and you have to check this box. Even if you don't want a loan, if you just want the $10,000 advance, you have to fill out this form. So when you get to this box, you want to click yes, I would like to be considered for the advance of $10,000. Now here's one more thing you've got to know. You've got to know some basic information about the account where you'd like that money deposited. This is going to be deposited through ACH, so they've got to know the account number and the routing number and the bank name for the account you're going to use. The account I'd recommend is whatever the operating account is for the bank. It's probably the same account where you're paying your taxes and where you're receiving a tax refund. To find the information for the account number and routing number, what you need is a check. Again, I flipped back to the step-by-step guide, which basically just tells you exactly what to do each step of the form. But if you pull one of your checks, doesn't matter if it's a canceled check or if it's a blank check you haven't written yet, you're going to have the routing number is the first set of numbers on the bottom left of the check, and then is the account number, and the last few are the check number, which you don't need. So with any check for the business operating account, you're going to find the routing number and the account number, and then the bank name also listed there. So once you enter that information, you're done with the form. You have to read these certifications and then certify that it's under the penalty of perjury, that it is true, that the above is true and correct. And once you select that radio box, you're going to be able to click next and submit the application. I am not going to enter NewTown's account and routing information into the form while we're talking. So I think that's it. It's really not that bad of a form. It took us, 20 minutes to walk it through here pretty slowly, and it may take you another bit of time to do revenues and COGS if you don't have those at hand ready to go, but it's really not going to take that much time for you to be able to finish this application. So I'm going to toss it over to David. And David, I'd like you to talk a little bit, anything else I missed about the EIDL, some differences between the EIDL and what we're hoping will be in the payroll protection program, and any other notes, tips, or tricks you've got from working with your clients lately.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate it. This is awesome information. I have applied in all 3 iterations of the economic injury disaster loan, and this last one is by far my favorite. It's way better. But some of the legislation that was passed in the CARES Act really reduced a lot of the underwriting requirements that the SBA previously had to grant these loans. So in the previous versions of the application, applicants had to submit a personal financial statement, tax returns, tax return transcripts, personal guarantees, and other things. But with the CARES Act temporarily waived basically all of those previous requirements in an effort to be able to use this streamlined application and get people at least something. So my understanding of what I think is going to be the case is that just that application will be enough to get you not just $10,000, but even more, perhaps even up to as much as $100,000 or more. That's my understanding. So basically what they gave the SBA administration and the loan officers there authority to approve people based solely on their credit or any other appropriate means. So I take that to understand that that basically you can get a full loan from that. You can get a full economic injury disaster loan just through that application. However, if they do grant you a loan and it's not enough, or you would like more, then probably that's when they'll request to look at your tax return. That's when they'll request to see the schedule of your liabilities, and perhaps most importantly, they'll request to look at your they have a special form. It's called if I can, I'll pull it up. I'll do a screen share. I don't know if that's working or not. Yeah, okay. If you need to request more money, or perhaps you just have a underwriter who wants to see this information, they will likely ask you, and I've filled these out when I was doing the original iteration of this application, for your monthly revenues for the last 3 years, so they can see what the actual extent of your economic damages are. I really don't know how much of this we'll see going forward, but if you want a sizable loan through the economic injury disaster loan program, you probably will need to end up filling this form out. It's monthly sales figures, just as best as you can, and just like your revenue, you can get this through your point of sale pretty easily. Also, they have this, I think it's more of an optional form where you can forecast what the rest of your year will look like due to this. And I think between this form showing what your potential economic injury is, and just your credit worthiness, or the credit worthiness of your business and your financials, I think those will be the most important things in determining the size of the loan and the length of the repayment terms for the economic injury disaster loan. Yeah, but like I said, I really expect that to be the exception rather than the rule. I really think that because there are so many people putting in applications, I really think that they'll be happy just to give you as good of a loan as they can based on the information that you give them in the streamlined application. I called the SBA yesterday and was told that I was 1,578th in line, and so I promptly hung up the phone. Right, yeah, so I think that covers almost everything on the economic injury disaster loan, at least when it pertains to just that loan in and of itself. However, there is some details that you need to know as it relates to the economic injury disaster loan and the new Paycheck Protection Program loan, which is really the big loan. That's the big kahuna that I think everyone should apply for as well. Everyone should apply for both of these loans, is all the information that I'm hearing. Anyways, Bethany hit on it on the economic injury disaster loan. You have to reapply through that system to get the $10,000, and that money is does never have to be paid back. However, the $10,000 will reduce your loan forgiveness amount from the PPP loan. So the economic injury loan is administered through the SBA, like Josh just showed us, but the Paycheck Protection Program loan is actually going to be administered through banks. So whoever you bank with right now, or wherever your trusted relationship is in the banking world, that is who you should be talking to regarding the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP loan. I know a lot of people were worried that, and it was unclear. I think that the SBA and the the federal government, everyone is still trying to figure out exactly how this is going to work and what it's going to look like. And so it was really unclear, and it still is, as to what you can and can't do with these loans. But my understanding is that you absolutely can apply for both of these loans. Not only that you can, but that you should, because because they're trying to get you $10,000 right now, and they're not telling you that the PPP loan that you'll get that money this week or next week. So I think you absolutely should apply for both of these loans. However, it is clear that you cannot use both loans for the same purposes. The PPP loan is really specifically for your payroll costs and some other main operating expenses that you have, and that's how they come up with the amount that you get. So so long as you're not taking out the economic injury disaster loan specifically to cover your payroll, if you take it out to pay certain vendors or to pay your sales tax or to meet other obligations that are separate from whatever obligations you intend to meet with the PPP loan, which should absolutely be your payroll, because that's really the only way to get the loan forgiven, then you can apply for both. As far as the timing of the cover period, it's still unclear, but I do know that if you get the economic injury disaster loan, just say you get $10,000, and then hopefully Friday is when the PPP loan will be available. That's what I'm hearing. I don't think that's confirmed yet, but whenever that day is, you should run to your bank, not walk, run and try to get one. But once you successfully get the PPP loan, you'll have the option, or I'm not sure whether it's an option or it's a mandate, that the PPP loan will refinance and basically assume the economic injury disaster loan. So yes, while the $10,000 will never have to be paid back, it won't increase your loan for the total amount of free money that is available to you. But it also won't preclude you from getting the bigger, better loan, which is the 7A PPP loan administered through the banks, hopefully opened up by this Friday. Yeah, that's Mostly it as far as the differences between the two. I can tell you, I've heard from several bankers that you should, like, they're about to be absolutely inundated. So you should absolutely get everything you can ready now. Get everything you can together as perfectly as you can. And that way, when the bell rings, you can run in and hand them everything you have, and try to be early in the line, because it is going to take a while, I'm sure, especially for those that aren't the absolute first responders to this. And the same is true with the economic injury disaster loan, the $10,000 advance. That the CARES Act, I say only appropriated $10 billion in those $10,000 emergency grants. So, I was 1,500 in line just yesterday. That $10 billion is going to run out quickly. So, you need to be ready. You need to be applying for both of these right now, right after this. But from my understanding, what you will need to apply for the 7A PPP loan will be more robust than the streamlined application that we just saw Josh do. You will need 2019 financials, most likely. You will need to show them a tax return. You will need, they'll need to see your most recent 941, which is your federal payroll tax form that you do quarterly. So you should already have your fourth quarter form done, and your payroll provider can get you that. It's possible that you even have your first quarter done by now. But beyond that, it would be wise to go ahead and calculate out your payroll costs. The amount of the loan granted to you, of the PPP loan granted to you, seems fairly straightforward. It's 2.5 months of your average monthly payroll. So come up with that figure and have the documentation on hand and ready. I think the banks will ask for that. They'll want you to do some of that work first and show them and prove it out. And if you do that, I think that the application process could go a lot quicker. Beyond that, they'll also want to see lease agreements, utility bills, health insurance premiums, all of the underlying documentation for that that proves out your financials. I think it's likely that they'll request a lot of that as well, because all of those expenses are the ones that are rolled into either the loan amount or the loan forgiveness amount. And so I think that you should expect to have to provide that or have that information ready. But beyond that,
that's great. I think that was really helpful.
Good, thanks.
We've only got a few minutes left. James, is there anything you want to hit real quick before we start moving through these questions? I've got 10 or 11 of them so far. We've got quite a few questions to move through.
Just a couple quick points. So, in the summary, there's two programs that's directly for the employees, and one is the expansion, the pandemic unemployment assistance, and the second one is the recovery rebates. And so those are the programs that are geared for the employees. And then the two loan programs are what's geared for the employers. And so what we're doing is we're waiting on the SBA to advise the banks on how to do the PPP, because the PPP loan is going to be forgiven. There's a lot of technical garbage in there, but if you hire the employees and use that money, it'll go away. So it is truly going to be turned into a grant. And so that we think is going to be hugely beneficial. The other that is part of the act is there is a 90-day up to 180-day forbearance on loan payments to certain lenders in there. And so their recommendation is kind of this week, while we're waiting on the 7A regs to come out, for people to be picking up the phone and talking to their creditors and lenders about who they can defer and who will do it, because that could be a huge benefit to everybody. Because what they've talked about doing the lenders would just basically have to move the term dates for your loans out. So if you go in and say, I want a 90-day deferral, you don't pay interest during that time, and then they just add the 3 months to the end of your loan. So that seems to be could be a huge benefit. And so if you did that this week, you went ahead and applied for the 10 grand, and then like Dave was saying, make sure you got your financials updated as current as you can, because you're going to have that, we believe, for the PPP application. And then the other thing that we keep suggesting, and Bethany and I harp on it all the time, is I would be working on a 13-week rolling cash flow, so that you could figure out, and you know, our guess is as good as anybody as to when we're going to ramp back up. But you could just go in and say, hey, I got 4, 5, or 6 more weeks of being closed, and then do 4, 5, or 6 more weeks of a ramp up, so that you could try to go in and figure out how much money you need. You know, if you went in and deferred all your loan payments, and just try to build a model so that when we do come back online, you've got a feeling for how much money you're going to need. Because the last thing we want to do is people to come back online and then not have enough cash flow to actually sustain it those first few weeks. So just a few closing comments, Josh.
Great, that was perfect. So I'm going to start running through the questions that we've gotten quickly, and any of my experts, if you want to chime in, including my business owners who know as much as anyone. So several of these questions are related to, is this different from applying for the loan? If you're not approved for the grant, are you given the loan instead? Do you have to apply for the loan to get the grant? The answer to all those is really the same. The application is the same for both programs. So there's also another question, what if I've already filled this out before? And I think we've answered that definitively. So if you want the grant, or if you want the loan, or if you filled out any previous version for the economic disaster loan, you have to fill out the third form that is on the SBA website now that we've posted the step-by-step directions for and walk you through today. That is true whether you want the loan or whether you want the grant. Just because you fill out the loan application is not committing you to take the loan. The loan offer will come later. The only thing that's automatic in this process is that radio box where you check that you do want to be considered for the $10,000 grant. Again, those $10,000 grants are limited in total amount, and we think they're going to be given out first come, first serve. So it's just critical that you get this form done as quickly as possible. The next question, let's see, is the business eligible even if they laid off workers? The answer to that is yes. The disaster loan is available even if you laid off workers. There's a question related to that is, what if you had a different number of employees after 131? Because the form asks you to list the number of employees on 131. You list the number of employees on 131, regardless of your staffing changes before or after that date. Scott Mitchell also pointed out that QuickBooks Online has got a feature where it will spit out your COGS for you. So if you've been keeping up with your own personal accounting and entering your expenses into QBO, you can get QuickBooks to give you your COGS number to enter into that form really quickly. And we got a question from Julie. What do nonprofits put as owner? Julie, there's not an option not to list someone. So you either need to list your board chair or yourself. So I mean, I think it's most appropriate to list the executive with operational control. I listed myself there. There is an easy way where it says ownership percentage. You can put it at 0. So for a nonprofit organization, you don't technically have any ownership, but you do have operating control, so you can put yourself there. The next question was, well, there are several questions about credit. Will I need to unfreeze my personal credit? Brian asked that, and Scott asked whether it was going to be business credit or personal credit. On the forms, there's nowhere to put anything like a DUNS number for them to be able to evaluate your corporate credit. So my guess is that, and y'all chime in if anyone thinks differently than me, but my guess is that whoever's social security number and birth date get listed there, it's going to be their personal credit, which, going to Brian's question, means yes, I think you also need to unfreeze your credit. Now, God knows when they're going to get to the underwriting portion of this to actually look at your credit to determine the loan amount they're going to offer you. But at some point, I do expect them to reference your personal credit.
Yeah, I would, so in the legislation, it says that the SBA can, the applicant, it doesn't specify whether that's really the owner of the underlying business or the business. But, just looking at the application right now, the first thing you have to choose is applicant is a business. So, trying to read in between the lines, I'm thinking perhaps it's possible that, and I don't know, Josh, if they can use a tax identification number to come up with any type of credit score for a business. I really don't, but perhaps they will try to loan you something off of the credit of the business.
And there is that they are committed to an unsecured portion up to $25,000. So I would think that that may not be credit impacted, the lower loan amounts. The last two questions I've got is Heatherly asked specifically about Where, which is owned by DePaul USA. Yes, in that case, if DePaul is 100% owner of Where, then that is the perfect instance where you will use that business is owned by a business entity and then enter all of DePaul USA's information as the business owner. And then the last question was from Julian, and it was about whether this was the same program as the 7A program, and I think David cleared that up. It is not. You are eligible to apply for both the economic injury disaster loan and the payroll protection program, but the payroll protection program is not available now. Best we know, as David said, is it will be available sometime between this Friday and next Friday. And NewTown will let you know the minute that is available, and we'll give you step-by-step instructions. And you will apply for that program through an individual bank who is already a 7A lender. So that's going to be a totally different process. But like David said they've only set aside $10 billion in this program for these $10,000 loans. There's only $350 billion in the payroll protection program. There are 30 million small businesses in the country. So that comes out to about $11,500 a piece. So that money is that won't cover 2.5 months of payroll for very many businesses at all. So that money is going to go incredibly fast, maybe so fast that it won't end up being a valuable program for most of us, unfortunately. But we're going to give you the best fighting chance of being able to benefit from it as soon as that's live. So just to sum it up today, the most important work you have is, regardless of your situation, you need to go right now and fill out the third version of the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan form. We've got step-by-step instructions on the NewTown website. If you run into any problems, all of us are here available to help for free to get you that form submitted today. But everyone needs to get that form done today. And then we will update you about the rest of these programs as they come available and as we learn more about them. So I think we've gotten all the questions answered, and we're very close to ending on time. Is there anything else, James, Bethany, David, y'all want to follow up with? Well, great. Thank you all for joining us. We'll get this uploaded to YouTube shortly. I'm thinking about all of you. I miss seeing you. It's great to check in with you here. I'm incredibly proud of all the work you're doing supporting each other, and I can't wait till we're open for business again and I can come get some drinks and snacks and stuff in all your businesses. So it's great to see you. Have a great week.
Hey, Josh. Hey, I was just going to say, as things are coming in, this is Brian, as things are coming in with different people, if everybody can maybe let us know, like if they end up getting something, just so that everybody else can kind of go, okay, well, they got theirs, so maybe we can expect ours pretty soon, and we can just kind of stay in contact that way, so everybody kind of has a more of a better idea as how things are working, so if one business gets it, everybody kind of knows that everything's coming, if we all are kind of doing it about the same time.
That's a great idea. My suggestion for that would be for y'all to let Emily know. Just reply to Emily's daily emails. You don't have the option to reply to all because she's using BCC, but just reply to Emily and update her with anything that's going on, and she'll be able to filter that out to the rest of the group, even anonymously, just to let her know that, at least one of our business owners has gotten X, Y, or Z response. That would be great. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add?
I'd just like to underline that we are going to do these weekly. And I'm Emily's wing girl on this, so you can email Bethany at NewTown. I'll put it in the chat, but specifically about questions and topics that you want us to cover on these webinars with you guys in the weeks ahead.
Great. Thank y'all. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Josh.